World may have been busy looking at Donald Trump's mugshot this past week, but that did not stop the GOP's relentless attempts to counter-program the ex-president's legal drama. In a move that surprised no one, Republican House Judiciary Chair Jim Jordan demanded that information from Fulton County DA Fani Willis's office about her probe that resulted in those criminal racketeering charges for Trump and his allies be handed over. In the letter obtained by NBC News, Jordan writes, "There are questions about whether and how your office coordinated with DOJ Special Counsel Jack Smith during the course of this investigation. To be clear, there's no evidence of coordination." He is asking Willis to submit all documents related to her office's use of federal funds and all communications with DOJ and executive branch officials regarding her investigation due by September 7th. Of course, you may recall that Jordan issued a similar demand of New York DA Alvin Bragg after Trump was charged in his hush money probe. And of course, not to be outdone, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy now warning that Republicans could move forward with an impeachment inquiry into President Biden if they don't receive documents they are now demanding from Biden family members. That include bank statements and credit card statements. And just this morning, he called it a, quote, natural step forward. This is, of course, again, all part of the House GOP's long-running obsession to prove President Biden benefited from his son Hunter's foreign businesses by taking a bribe from a Ukrainian energy company. Again, there's no evidence of that. In fact, White House Republicans have found, what they have found contradicts their own theories. As Philip Bump writes in the Washington Post, any freshman year philosophy student can identify the flaw here. Joe Biden could turn over years of bank records, submitting them to endless scrutiny. But McCarthy and his allies could simply insist that something was still missing. And there you have it. Republican counter-programming 101. But at the end of the day, the ex-president is still facing 91 charges across 4 criminal cases and jurisdictions, and no amount of political stunts by Jim Jordan or Kevin McCarthy or anyone else is going to change that. Joyce Vance and Christina Greer are back with me. Joyce, legally, what is Jim Jordan hoping to find here, and what obligations does Fani Willis have to send it over? Because last I checked, there is nothing wrong with her talking to Jack Smith, who is investigating the same crime, the attempt to overturn an election.
Right. You're 100% correct about that. There's nothing wrong with federal and state prosecutors coordinating. It happens all the time, every day in this country. Jim Jordan knows that. He knows that Fani Willis will not comply with his demands because they are improper, just like the ones made to Alvin Bragg in Manhattan were. So our only possible takeaway here is that Jordan is not engaging in some form of legitimate congressional oversight. This is just political posturing at its worst. He's hoping he can cast aspersions. He can convince people who are poorly informed that something inappropriate happened. It's really a desperate last gasp at trying to delegitimize Fani Willis's prosecution.
Christina, I want to turn now to this warning of an impeachment inquiry from Speaker McCarthy. Philip Bump in the Washington Post put it like this, that if an impeachment inquiry were to move forward, one might hope that it would be conducted with an eye toward fairness, objectivity, and impartiality, all of which McCarthy demanded of then Speaker Nancy Pelosi in 2019. We know that is not going to happen.
Absolutely not. I mean, as Joyce just laid out, we're not dealing with a party that, is in a rational mind. And so, this is the party that said even before Joe Biden was elected as president of the United States, they said they were going to impeach him. The questions were, well, for what? And they were like, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out later, but we're definitely going to impeach him. These are plans that they had, well before he even took office. But I do want to circle back, Eamon, to something Joyce said. We need to put our cards on the table here and recognize that Jim Jordan's a part of his reticence to try and delegitimize Fani Willis is also, the fact that she's African-American, as is Al Bragg, as is Tish James. And so all he has to do is go back to his Trump supporters and say, look, these, very educated, highfalutin African-Americans are clearly trying to attack our president. And that's all his supporters need to hear. This is the same reason why Donald Trump wanted to move one of his trials from D.C. to West Virginia, because he wanted a more diverse jury pool, meaning he wanted to move it from a territory that has, 45% African Americans to a place in West Virginia where they're, 3 or 4% African Americans. So this goes back to a larger racialized, racist ideology that Donald Trump has had, not just as president, but well before he was elected.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, Christina, this is something we've seen them do with Hillary Clinton time and time again. Of course, everyone here remembers Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. Kevin McCarthy spelled it out. He said clear as day. He said, look what we did with her poll numbers after we created the Select Committee on Benghazi. And that's what it seems they're trying to do with this Hunter Biden probe and trying to connect it to the president, when we know that most Americans do not connect Hunter Biden's legal issues with President Biden.
Absolutely not, Eamon. And don't forget, this is the same thing that they did with Barack Obama's birth certificate. As you said, it will never be enough. So as much that, Joe Biden can show every single receipt from, 1972 to the present, it will never be enough. And so I think if you sort of keep that in mind, you recognize that you're not dealing with a good faith effort with the Republican Party.
Yeah, I was going to say never play into their hands. Christina Greer, Joyce Vance, thank you so much for your time tonight. Greatly appreciate it and your insights as always.